All right, so we're here with Guardian Speak. I'm Cassandra Davies.
I'm Debbie Bratby.
And I'm here with...
Julian.
All right.
You could call me Jules.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great, Jules. So Jules, you are a retired Santa Clara County Correctional Deputy.
Yes.
And we met when there was still a correctional department before the sheriff's office absorbed the corrections department. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, I know you do too, there was a lot of contention between the sheriff's office and correctional department.
Long-standing politics.
Yeah. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. And I would kind of like to follow your story from the beginning of you becoming a correctional officer and then moving through into becoming a correctional deputy, retiring from there after so many years, and now you're a practicing licensed marriage family.
Oh, I'm pre-licensed.
Okay, so you're a pre-licensed
I'm
therapist.
still working on my hours, yes.
Great. All right, so if you'd like to
Do you
start.
want to erase that or start again? Or?
Just, oh no, you don't have to erase anything. I'll edit.
You can edit it out.
Yeah.
No, I'm pre-licensed. I'm
Okay,
probably about 900 hours
great.
from taking the license. But I just want to preface this by saying that I do still work occasionally as extra help.
Okay.
And the department has become much more professional since it was absorbed by the sheriff,
Wow.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think that's because the I don't know, do they feel like they won the battle, or just because there's no more divide?
I think that it's a larger scale than that. I think that the political climate has shifted to the degree that things were changing, and then when the sheriff absorbed us, I just think it was an alignment of a couple of different variables that caused the shift.
That's great.
And I think it's been for the better.
Great.
For the employees and for the citizens, for everybody.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right. So just I'm gonna hush and let you tell us your story.
My story. Well, it was 1989, I think, when I started working for the Department of Corrections, and I took that job with a mind toward retirement. It was never my goal in life to work in law enforcement. It was, it's just interesting how permutations happen along the life path. And so I had worked at another law enforcement agency prior to going to corrections. I took that job with an eye to the retirement. So that was kind of my North Star all along. It's like I want to make this through and get that retirement.
Yeah.
And the path had its challenges. Early on in my career, I took on and helped a group of officers write a report about the unfair management practices there. And a lot of the African American officers came to me and asked me for help because they knew I was a good writer. And that basically kind of that was one of the killers of my career there.
Well, I wasn't even aware of that. Well, no wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lieutenant basically refused to investigate it and pushed it back. And I got a bad reputation after that. You know, always an outlier, you know.
Yeah.
And very clearly throughout my career, I sensed that they wanted to get rid of me, but they just couldn't, you know.
Yeah.
And I kept continuing to contribute to the department. I worked at a lot of different divisions within the department. You know,
Yeah.
I even tested for management several times, and it became clear that you know, I wasn't going to go anywhere that way. So, you know, I had my eye on retirement anyway. So yeah, there were times when I wanted to quit, but I knew that I wanted to get that retirement someday. And
Yeah.
I had other goals in my mind. Another supporting, I always had a strong spirituality that it scaffolded me throughout my trials and tribulations through the department.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't alone in, you know, during that era, they would target people for discriminatory practices and selective enforcement of policies and
Yes.
procedures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I started out as a lesbian there, and I was a bodybuilder. They did not take too kindly to that, so there was always a little bit of harassment.
Yeah.
And then I went through gender transition there, which was really, really difficult. Then I had upper admin monitoring me and holding me to different standards.
Really?
Yeah, so you know, it was quite the journey.
Yeah.
But you know, I had a very strong spiritual sense
That's great.
and
You
a
know,
practice.
yeah. Because we both were bodybuilders,
Yes.
and I got the same kind of, was under the same kind of scrutiny. In fact, when I had my heart attack, I don't know if you were aware, but people were going to officers and asking certain officers that they knew I was friendly with if I was on steroids, because they wanted to deny my workers' comp claim. And
I'm not surprised.
yeah, so, and I found out, you know, from my friends, so
Yeah.
I'm just shaking my head. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was during that period, they cultivated an environment of fear and intimidation.
Definitely.
And, yeah.
It was
you
very
know,
strong, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your spiritual practice. Did you meditate? Did you know,
I
utilize-
meditated, still meditate. I pray, and I
Uh-huh.
prayed a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I explored many different spiritual traditions, and that was always active. And I trusted in a power higher than myself to carry me through.
Yeah.
I had friends and family. I had friends outside the department, which was very supportive, and you know, I saw a therapist throughout my career there,
Yeah.
which who actually advised me to just quit and be done with that oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I was in it for the long haul to get my pension. And yeah.
Yeah. I have to commend you. You know, it almost killed me, you know, with a heart attack.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a plan like you either.
Mhm.
I kind of fell into corrections a little bit, and my plan was to retire, but I didn't have a set plan, like pre-figured out ahead of time. So I just, yeah. And you had a lot of supporting practices, which is the reason
Mhm.
we're talking to you, because you're an example of someone who's under a lot of stress on the job, a whole lot of stress, and we know stress is cumulative. It has negative effects on the body. And you're an example of someone who did everything that a person should do to mitigate that stress. You know, you remained healthy, you live a healthy, an active, healthy lifestyle. You had a spiritual practice, you had therapy, you had friends and family support. So.
Oh, and I had self-care.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding.
Yes.
Bodybuilding, that physical practice, I can't say enough about that. That and maintaining my own, you know, physical hygiene in terms of diet and exercise.
Yeah.
It really helped. Otherwise, without those supports, I would have just collapsed under the physical strain of the stress, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know the term HSP, right?
Yes.
Highly sensitive person. I can identify myself as a highly sensitive person, and I believe that had a really strong effect on me. So I'm just wondering if you would characterize yourself as an HSP.
I think I have HSP characteristics in that I'm easily overly stimulated.
Yeah.
I used to find the lights in the squad room felt oppressive.
Oh yeah.
And they bothered my eyes a lot. Yeah, and you had to keep your feelings contained.
Yeah.
And there was so much pain and misery there, you know, just soul crushing among the staff and the inmates. And I think as a highly sensitive person, you soak it all up from both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And did you find that you had to spend a lot of alone time recharging?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 A lot of people, especially in that field, seem to derive their energy from interaction with others, where I think people like me who are more on the introverted scale, HSP, it's just the opposite for us. We need to withdraw and have alone time to reinvigorate ourselves, to replenish our drained energy reserves.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So, as a therapist,
I'd just like to back up, you know.
Sure.
I didn't know. My plan shifted throughout the department. You know, when I went there with an eye to retirement, getting that retirement. But it's funny, as an undergraduate, I thought I would reapply to law school, and I thought that would be my path.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I went into programs and started working with inmates who were struggling with substance use issues, that really informed my decision to switch gears, and it informed my desire to become a therapist.
Okay.
So I enjoyed that work so much.
Great. I do remember that you had spoken about going to law school.
I'm so glad I didn't take that path.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's really exciting to hear, because we both have that desire to help people. And I know you remember Pride at Women's.
Yes, yeah.
That was the best. That one cycle that I worked was the best time in my whole career.
I believe it. What was that like for you?
I enjoyed getting up in the morning to go to work. It was effortless. the days flew by, and when they killed the program, I went into a deep depression, and I wasn't really aware of it, but I started really hating the job. And I was taking courses at Landmark.
I remember.
Yeah, somebody asked me, well, what's going on? And I just burst into tears and said, I hate my job. And then I was kind of like, where'd that come from? Like, oh, that's something to look at, And that was shortly before, that was probably within a year of the heart attack. Yeah. So.
So what is pride? I mean, I know the word pride, but what was it in the...
Oh yeah, the women's boot camp program. And I cannot remember the acronym to save my life, but...
it was a precursor to RCP, which was the Regimented Corrections Program, which, of course,
Is that still going on?
Yes.
Oh, that's so good to hear. That's so great. And RCP is administered at Elmwood on the men's side, right?
And women's.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what does that entail for the inmates?
Well, it's a 3-tiered program now where there's an in-custody portion where they take classes, and the inmates are they're introduced to structure and regimentation, and to support their healing and growth through there's a lot of trauma history and use of substances, and usually that's what brought them into the jail system to begin with. Then they go through that for about 8 weeks, and then if they're eligible, they get to go to phase 2, where they can live off-site in a sober living environment. It still counts as time toward their custody sentence, or their time. They're getting credit for time served. And they're in classes 8 hours a day, and they're randomly drug tested throughout that period. And then phase 3, they're tracked either into a vocational, probation steps in, because it was a concerted effort between the drug courts, the sheriff's department, and probation. And now they have re-entry programs in addition to support inmates in re-entering society. So it's a kinder culture. It's really quite progressive, I think.
So I'm going to play a card that's often been played to me because I do some prison work. I have done some prison work, and some of the law enforcement colleagues that I have will say, well, why are you wasting your time? What would you say to the victim of these folks? Like, if I'm a victim of a crime and I know that the person who has induced this crime upon me is getting this kind of treatment, I might be a bit resentful. So what would you say to someone who says, "Wow, this is BS. This is BS giving these people those kinds of treatments"? How would you answer that?
I can understand the pain of the victims and their need for some kind of vengeance or justice. And the way I hold that is there's pain on many levels, and often these folks come from histories where there's severe trauma and poverty, lack of education, which completely limits their choices in life. And that's what they call the pipeline to prison, poverty and trauma. And then that generally you add in self-medicating substances. It's a very sad mixture of variables that, I don't know that a victim of crime would really want to hear any of that. But we're all here together in this, and this is how we impact each other So if there's a deficit on the one side where people aren't getting the help that they need, they're going to resort to doing things that they might not have if they had had different choices or different opportunities.
Very true.
That kind of leads into one of my questions I had is that how, for society, we have this us versus them mentality. How do you see society moving away from that us versus them, more of an us?
Us, and we're in it together.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have the answer for that. I think you could get a different answer from every person that you talk with. I don't know. I hope that a shift in consciousness is happening on some level, and
So you think it'd be a shift in consciousness would be to get there, would be one way. And I asked just because I want to ask everybody we interview what is their opinion, because I want to get this feedback from people and what they think.
I really hope that can happen, when I see people coming together for causes like climate change and some other issues that are bigger, that impact all of us, that gives me hope that we can come together, because a lot of the things that have created divisions between us, in my mind, they're not real. They're just social constructs.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, do you have any other questions?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Julian, this is, I've just really appreciate you making the time to talk with us. And I'm really proud of who you are, and especially knowing what you've gone through, to see you here working towards your license and helping people. And you never lost your humanity along the way.
No.
So
I had this idea that I carried with me through corrections, and it's still there when I'm doing extra help to pay for my therapy practice.
Yeah.
Is that how would I want my loved ones and the people I care about treated if they had the misfortune of being in a place like this?
Exactly. Yeah. Some people lose sight of that, and it's unfortunate that happens.
It is.
But yeah, I'm really grateful that the culture is changing. Yeah. So.
And I'm wondering, what's your opinion on what could departments, both police departments and correctional agencies, do for the mental health of their officers? What kind of programs could they induce, could they have for their officers to maintain a healthy emotion?
I think they're starting to do that now. It's a baby step that they're taking, but it's a step forward, and in that they are recognizing that first responders have the highest divorce, alcohol, and suicide rates. That was addressed in a class that the county offered last year called De-escalation. And they included the officers, and they have peer counseling for officers. So I think as soon as we can get rid of the stigma of mental health for officers and first responders, the better off everyone will be, because it really takes a toll on people. And I think there's that small shift happening where they're recognizing it.
How do you see that being received by the officers?
For the most part, I think it is being received. It's hard to tell because with officers there's this there's this kind of gallows humor that they use as defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So it's hard to read that, but when I see that kind of gallows humor,
Mm-hmm.
I know that, okay, they're being impacted and they're just
Yeah.
exercising some resistance.
Yeah.
But it's getting in.
That's
you know.
good.
So I think that there's hope.
Yeah, it is. It's very hopeful. And every time Debbie and I get together and work on stuff and talk about what we're doing, it, we could light up a whole house.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think that dispelling that us versus them
Yeah.
myth is really important, because even with first responders, they're there to help. You know, they're
Yeah.
and it's, you know, the media has really generated a lot of negativity toward first responders, and you know, of course, there's 10% or whatever the stat is. You're going to find, you know,
Yeah.
there's a group of bad apples, as they say, in every profession.
Yeah.
But I don't think that ought to be eclipsed by. There are
Oh.
far more people. There's the greater sum of people who are in it for the right reasons.
Exactly. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah. So I hope I've answered your questions comprehensively. If
Yeah.
there's something I've left out.
No, actually.
Yep.
Nope. Oh, I have one question.
Okay.
In your opinion, as both personally and as a therapist, I've done a lot of reflection on this question.
Okay.
What creates a bully? Like, whether in or out of law enforcement, what do you see creates a bully? Like, within law enforcement, power corrupts unless someone is really diligent in maintaining their humanity. But as
If
far
they're conscious.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What creates a bully? All I can do is offer a humble opinion, and I don't know. And
Yeah.
I don't claim to be an expert. I'm nascent in my career as a
Mhm.
therapist.
yeah,
But my sense is that there's some wounding there. There's some wounding, and that plays a role. And then also, I think another component that I witness is there's lots of microaggressions going on. Micro-bullyings that adults do every day that we witness. And in my mind, I read that as bullying.
Yeah.
You know, the person encroaching upon your space before you even have time to put your wallet away at the grocery store.
Mhm.
The way people drive, the bullying that goes on. And I think all those microaggressions, children they see those things, and
Yeah.
they take that in, and that's all this quote unquote bullying on a different level
yeah,
is being modeled to kids. So I think they learn it there,
Hmm.
and then whatever wounding may exist, so that,
yeah.
you know, that's just my sense.
That's my sense as well. I agree. Feel the same way, Debbie?
I do feel the same way, Cassandra.
Great. Well, this has been really, really eye-opening and humbling for me, just to, just to really have this in-depth talk with you, and to
I'm happy
share
to
your
help.
journey. You share your journey, not just with us, but with all of us, who are listening.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'm Cassandra. We've been speaking with Julian. And for Guardian Speak, I want to say, stay safe, everybody. All right.
Well, I hope you can